All right, everybody. So, Shawn, before we start this week's show, you said that you have something to tell us, yeah?
I do. Thank you, Adam. This will be my last prepared statement. Because of the nature of my job, I've gotten to a point where it's becoming a conflict of interest to continue reviewing superhero movies and TV shows. Clooney left ER, Liam Neeson left the Darkman franchise, and Shelley Long left Cheers. So, as much as I hate to do it, I have to step down from HMP and Preacher Podcast and anything else you guys have moving forward. And while it's been a great 5 years, moving on is the correct move for me, and I wanted to say thank you to both Adam and Bruce and the audience. So that's 3 people. I don't know why I said both. We'll always be friends, and thank you all for everything. And there you have it, HMPers. I'm sure I'll see you guys around. I appreciate you all.
You're welcome. When do you think your last show will be?
Now, like right now. I can't give more notice because of the way things have been going. I know it's going to be hard finding someone, but I have full confidence you guys will replace me with someone great.
Yeah, we know.
We've seen this coming for a while, Shawn. So we've already found somebody.
That's great. Do I know this person or
no?
Oh, well. I'll help with the transition any way I can. I guess I should talk to them about the Stallone connection. As long as the show keeps going, you guys can still use it. I don't see why not.
Yeah. We already talked to the new guy about it. We're good.
Oh, and also, I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but the new guy's name is also Shawn.
What?
Yeah, he even sounds a little bit like you, only without all the, I don't know, Adam, what's the word I'm looking for?
Arrogance?
No.
Pompousness.
No, that's not it.
I'm still here, guys.
Delusions of grandeur.
That's it.
That's not even a word. It's a phrase. Thank you guys for making this as awkward as humanly possible. You know, I was going to offer to come in on special episodes, but now I don't even care. I don't care. Good luck with your show. If you're ever in Charlotte, Bruce, I'll see you at Heroes Con. Goodbye, HMPers. And by the way, Dr. Dandu, you can chug it. Keenan out.
Bye, Shawn.
See ya. So that's it?
I think so. Do you think we should replace all the promotional materials?
Good God, yes. I mean, the sooner that we can wash our hands of that guy, the better.
I can still hear you guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and Heidi's called me a synonym for Brainy Burro before.
And introducing for the first time, Mr. Shawn Kovak.
I'm new.
Hey, everybody. So we are back, and we have got a heck of an episode here for you because, well, it's not exactly the episode that we promised last week. So when Bruce and I ended up last week, we said we were going to bring you Superman and the Mole Men. I don't know why you picked that out of the air, Bruce, but we couldn't find a copy of that online that looked anywhere remotely close to viewable by a human being with eyeballs.
But I've got a treat. If people prefer to read their podcasts rather than listen to them, they can read Nerdspawn Genesis, where there's a chapter where the old Shawn, Adam, and myself do a review of Superman and the Mole Men.
Despite that, wow, a book that has the future and a future of which will never be seen. So these things happen, I suppose.
It's an excellent review. It's an excellent podcast episode you could read in chapter form.
So we decided actually to go with some more of the things that are easily available online via the new DC. Is it DC Direct? I don't know what the heck these things are called anymore.
Yeah, DC Universe.
DC Universe.
DC Online.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. And we'll be reviewing a couple episodes from Superman Season 6, Episodes 102 and 103, respectively, titled The Brainy Burro, sounds like something right up Bruce Leslie's avenue, and The Perils of Superman. And I think we're going to have a good old-fashioned time with that and, get us into our new shoes here with our good friend Shawn. So, Shawn, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you.
you've got some big shoes to replace here, but don't worry, kids. None of our regular bits and stuff are going away. It's all going to be a lot of business as usual. We've coached up Shawn here on the ins and out of this program and everything. We want to make this as smooth and easy a transition for everybody as possible. So thank you for bearing with us in these new times. We're just trying to get the tires warm on this bad boy. You know what I'm saying? So let's do a couple quick little things here. So Shawn, let's get a couple of a flavor of how you may be different from the last guy. Okay. Let's talk like DC animated films. What are your you dig on those a little bit? I hear.
Yeah, I like them. They're good.
Okay.
How do you feel about that Bruce Springsteen song, Santa Claus is Coming to Town?
Oh, I love it.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. That should be our new background music as we discuss movies all this Christmas season.
That's a great idea.
Things are getting better and better around here. You don't have strong opinions on Teamsters or anything, do you?
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, thank Christ. Sidebar. Bruce, can we agree that was just the lamest bit that guy ever just brought? It's just like, hey, these Teamsters. These people got families and kids to feed, for crying out. All right, I'm sorry.
Guys, I can hear you.
What was bad was how the old Shawn used to pretend he didn't like the Crow when we know he was probably the biggest Crow fan we'd ever met. He dressed like Eric Draven just for himself, not even to go out.
I get that it's part of the fun bit and stuff that we do, but it also feels like a human being is not being genuine about themselves, and that just it's wrong in my book. But anyway,
I agree.
Yeah, see, God, you're going to fit in really well here, dude. So welcome aboard, and let us never speak of this again.
Sorry I'm having trouble playing along. I'm reading Chapter 4 of Nerdspawn Genesis. That's where we review Superman Meets the Mole Man.
You know what? If people want to check that out, Bruce, we're going to do plugs at the top of the show. Where might they find that review that will never happen on this show?
Okay, I'm going to read you an excerpt from the book.
I didn't say read the damn thing. I said tell us.
Bruce crossed his arms. I'd like to cosplay as a mole man. I'd so love to see that, shouted Adam. Bruce all dressed up as a mole man and nobody notices. He paused to chortle. They just think that's what he looks like. He chortled some more.
Let me tell you something. I last year for Christmas, you can ask anyone in my family, I bought issues of that. I bought the physical copy of Nerdspawn Genesis, and I signed them and I gave them to family members.
That is so good, man. It's so perfect.
I wrote nothing in the book. My face is on the cover. That's it. But I signed it as if I had written it, and it was like, there you go. That's a little piece of me. It was so good. So, with Amazon and everything, there are a couple of days shipping and everything. We are in the month of giving, folks. I don't care if it's Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you got under your, or if you just want to have, a lovely Thursday, head on over to Amazon there, pick up a copy of Nerdspawn Genesis. Boom! I like that. So let's get into it, boys. I don't have a trailer for this because, we don't have, trailers from 50s television shows.
70-year-old trailers.
But what I am going to do is play you the opening so you get a little vibe of this Superman show. So check out the opening for Superman.
The Adventures of Superman. Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. Look, up in the sky. It's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's Superman. Yes, it's Superman. Strange visitor from another planet who came to Earth with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. Superman, who can change the course of mighty rivers, bend steel in his bare hands, and who, disguised as Clark Kent, mild-mannered reporter for a great metropolitan newspaper, fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way.
Alrighty, everybody, that was the opening for The Adventures of Superman, and we're going to be reviewing a couple episodes this week. We know who Superman is, but I don't know how we're going to wring anything else out of this, but you know what time it is, boys and girls.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
I tell you what, that newly remastered version of that we just got, way better.
The one with new Shawn, he's a much better singer than old Shawn.
Isn't it, though?
It's in
Not
4K.
pitchy or nothing. I love it, dude.
All the hate mail we used to get about that song.
It's
Glad
just
we got
like,
somebody else to
please,
sing
for the
now.
love of Pete, someone needs to redo this. It's awful. Thank heavens.
I'm really glad to help. I'm glad to help out.
So good. Bruce, what do you got for us this week?
The 1950s were the era of Frederick Wortham and his infamous book, Seduction of the Innocent, which thankfully was not a how-to book. Now, as a result of... I didn't have a laugh break there. As a result of Wortham's misguided crusade, comic book was almost a bad word in America. And as a result, you may have noticed that the introduction to the adventures of Superman report the character is based on Superman magazine rather than Action Comics or Superman comics. And this might lead you to ask, what was Superman magazine? Well, the answer is there was no Superman magazine. The producers just didn't have enough heat in their trousers to admit it was a comic book. Do you think people in the 1950s were so naive that they didn't realize Superman was a comic book character? Were there people who thought he was real and that Superman magazine was like Sports Illustrated for flying aliens? Who knows? But let's circle back around to Wortham. The puritanical German psychiatrist did not spare Superman from his attack on the comic industry. However, unlike the many other combatants that fell victim to Wortham's attacks, the Man of Steel not only continued to thrive under the scrutiny, but his creators attacked back. As a result, Wortham was humiliated and forced to join the likes of Lex Luthor, Metallo, and Brainiac on the list of many opponents who've been defeated by the first breakout superhero of all time. As evidence of Superman's continuing influence, I offer this. A Gallup poll concluded that the public knew more about Superman than American history, and that almost certainly applies to me. Now, when Superman first appeared in 1938, he was an anti-establishment social crusader who fought for the common people against the interests of the rich and powerful. Mark Waid, in Superman in the 50s, described this early Superman as, and I quote, a diamond in the rough, a quick-tempered social activist whose dedication to the ideals of truth and justice apparently put him above the rules and regulations of society. Superman moved to the right, if you will, in the 1950s. Instead of fighting for the oppressed against the government, he embraced the establishment and became its most staunch patriotic supporter and advocate. The reason for this was that in 1940, new editor Whitney Ellsworth instituted a moral code for the last son of Krypton. A copy of DC's editorial standards in the form of a memo by Mr. Ellsworth was submitted to Congress as a part of the testimony of Gunnar Dibwad, and I think that's really his name.
What
Gunnar
a great
Dibwad,
name, Dibwad. I love it.
Executive Director of the Child Study Association of America during the 1954 hearing on juvenile delinquency. Here are a few key points. The inclusion of females in stories is specifically discouraged. Seriously,
Wow.
They use this as an example of a good thing. Heroes and other good persons must use basically good English. So I guess grammar Nazis are the good guys right after World War II. Characters, even villains, should never be shown bleeding. The use of chains, whips, or other such devices is forbidden. The kidnapping of children is specifically forbidden. Heroes should never kill a villain. Crime should be depicted in all cases as sordid and unpleasant. Crime and criminals must never be glamorized. Looking at that list, it seems a lot like a description of our podcast. But the original opening of the radio program, which describes Superman's fight as a never-ending battle for truth and justice, was changed during World War II to Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi minister of propaganda, denounced Superman in April 1940 in Das Schwarzkorps, the weekly newspaper of the Nazi SS. He attacked the comic and specifically its Jewish creators. In Italy, Mussolini banned Superman comics, and strangely, Wortham wanted America to follow in the footsteps of Goebbels and Mussolini, at least as far as Superman was concerned. Seduction of the Innocent, which blamed comics for the growing problem of juvenile delinquency in America. Well, this book is commonly viewed as the stimulus that stirred the public moral panic and created a backlash against comics and their creators. This, in turn, led to the destruction of a large number of comic publishers and to the imposition of the Comics Code. Tom DeHaven called Wortham the industry's real-life supervillain. Here's a little bit of what Wortham had to say about Superman. The Superman type of comic books tends to force and superforce. Dr. Paul A. Whitty, professor of education at Northwestern University, has well described these comics when he said that they present our world in a kind of fascist setting of violence and hate and destruction. I think it is bad for children. He goes on. To get that kind of recurring diet, they place too much emphasis on a fascist society. Therefore, the democratic ideals that we should seek are likely to be overlooked. Per David Hajdu, author of The 10-Cent Plague, a comic book critique of Wortham, Wortham considered superhero comics as dangerous as any others. In fact, he reserved especially toxic venom for National/DC's popular trio of heroes, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, whom he saw respectively as exemplars of fascism, homoeroticism, and sadomasochism. Wortham wrote that Superman influences children to do a good deed for the sake of fame and potential rewards. Wortham even goes so far as to argue that Superman's influence is so dangerous that the character encourages children to create accidents and problems in order to be seen solving them. When he testified in front of the Senate, Wortham took the time to single out Superman, noting that the comic books aroused in children, quote, fantasies of sadistic joy in seeing other people punished over and over again while you yourself remain immune. Wortham called it the Superman complex. Wortham also argued that Superman was actually the epitome of Nazism. Superman's speed, strength, and near invulnerability, he argued, drew close to the concept of the perfect man and race that was located at the core of the Nazi Party's ideology, and thus provided subliminal support for the Nazi Party. Wortham's condemnation of Superman for being an un-American Nazi mere years after the Nazi Party itself condemned Superman for being a pro-American Jew is why I officially declare Wortham to have been a numbnuts. And that's spelled with a Z, by the way. Numbnuts with a Z.
For the kids.
Wortham is also quoted as saying, I think Hitler was a beginner compared to the comic book industry. This very well could have been the first incident of Godwin's rule, Adam. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Now, do you think the Superman writers just rolled over and took this beating? Thanks to the baby boom, there were more children than ever when this whole debacle was going on. The Adventures of Superman debuted in 1953 with George Reeves playing the Man of Steel and Ellsworth as the producer. Almost immediately, the show became tremendously popular and is considered a television classic. Superman even reached the pinnacle of his day, the highest thing any living human could do in the 1950s. Superman got a guest spot on I Love Lucy. Les Daniels explains, such guest shots were generally reserved for Hollywood icons like John Wayne, Rock Hudson, or Harpo Marx. Really? They go with Harpo? I would have went with Groucho personally. But anyway, Reeves joined their illustrious company, or rather Superman did. The show preached a message of the Superman show preached a message of tolerance and goodwill. The television show continued to showcase the same all-ages positive messages that ran through the comic. George Reeves said, in Superman, we're all concerned with giving kids the right kind of show. We don't go too much for violence. Once for a big fight scene, we had several of the top wrestlers in town to do the big brawl. It was considered too rough by the sponsors and producers, so it was toned down. Our writers and the sponsors have children, and they are all very careful about doing things on the show that will have no adverse effect on the young audience. We even try in our scripts to give a gentle message of tolerance and stress that a man's color and race and religious beliefs should be respected. Wortham wrote, some movie writers look in comic books for new tricks. For instance, the producer of the movie serial Adam Man vs. Superman, which was shown in about half the movie theaters of the country, is said to be an avid reader of the comics from which he gets many of his ideas. Television has taken the worst out of comic books, from sadism to Superman. The comic book Superman has long been recognized as a symbol of violent race superiority. The television Superman, looking like a mixture of an operatic tenor without his armor on and an amateur athlete out of a health magazine advertisement. I wonder if he saw the same show I did. Anyway, this does not only have superhuman powers, but explicitly he belongs to a super race. With the passing of time, Superman's popularity grew, and Wortham, on the other hand, became a pariah. He was even shunned by the Comics Code Authority, the very organization of censorship that he inspired wouldn't allow him to be part of their group. Wortham attempted to clean up early television by writing an anti-television thesis called War on Children, which was very similar in theme to Seduction of the Innocent, but the book could not find a publisher. And in case you haven't noticed, Superman has never gone out of print.
And probably not bound to for some time here. Man, I felt like we were watching an Errol Morris documentary, man. Holy crap, that was a lot of good stuff in there. A lot of stuff I didn't know
what I was getting into. You know, I watched the show, and in the beginning I heard him say, based on the character from Superman Magazine. And I thought, what is this malarkey? And I started trying to figure out what Superman Magazine was, and somehow this came out of me.
Yeah, very good. So the first episode we're going to cover, again, this is from season 6 here. It's entitled The Brainy Burro. Both of these episodes,
I love it.
Both of these episodes are actually directed by Superman himself, George Reeves. And here's what somebody wrote down for the IMDb plot line. I can't believe this is a thing. Perry gets a wire from Lois, who's in Mexico, that she's discovered a donkey with psychic powers. That old tale. Perry sends Clark down to investigate. Discovers that not only does the burro have psychic powers, but has also figured out Clark's identity as Superman. So, to welcome him into the show and everything, since we couldn't find this mole man thing worth of crap, we asked new Shawn here if he would, pick out a couple episodes of Superman. Why these episodes, Shawn? What sprung out to you that made you decide that this is what you wanted to have?
It's basically the end of the series, and so they're running out of ideas. And it is so clear that they're running out of ideas when you're watching these episodes. It is everything that is great about superhero TV shows. I love everything about this. And I'm going to say this. I know, Adam, you have your own podcasts besides this one. Bruce, I know you have other podcasts besides this one. I am going to start a podcast that all we do is review Superman, the TV show from the 50s. I love this so much. It is so fun. It is it's fun to watch how they're getting things done on this show, where you're watching them cut from what is clearly on a stage.
Desilu Productions.
To stock footage of something,
Now,
back to them on stage. So great.
I would imagine you didn't realize this when you selected these 2 episodes, but these are the first 2 episodes to have been directed by George Reeves.
I did not know that.
And he gets better, I guess, from the Brainy Burro to the next one we're going to talk about. But I want to talk to the writers. Like, what's going on in that writer's room when you think that a psychic donkey in Mexico is a good idea for the show? And by the way, I'm in. Like, it doesn't necessarily, I mean, that could have been an episode of Friends. It could have been an episode of Law and Order SVU. I don't care. If you got a psychic donkey in Mexico, I'm at least going to give you to the first commercial break.
And at what point do they have the conversation where, okay, George, it doesn't work. It doesn't work anymore where the donkey just taps its hoof on the ground to count out. Now the donkey has to shake its head yes and no. So why don't you just pull on the reins to make the donkey say yes and no?
And I also wonder, was donkey their first choice of animal? like I kind of wonder if they wanted some other animal and then they decided
a horse, but they couldn't afford it.
Here's
Mr. Ed's already got the horse thing going on, and then Lassie's got the dog thing, and Gentle Ben's got the bear, and Flipper's got the dolphin. We need something to make our own. We need a burro. And also the person who decided on a burro didn't realize that a burro was a donkey. He thought it was some kind of like exotic spider monkey type thing in Mexico, and somebody had to break the news to him that a burro was a donkey.
I think they just went with burro because of Brainy Burro,
It's called alliteration, Bruce. You'd think of all people, you'd have known that. I mean, Miss Captain alliteration over here.
Is the burro necessarily brainy? I think it's a misnomer, man. He's a psychic burro, but he hasn't shown that he can solve problems on his own.
Well, where does one hold psychic powers
minds
in their brain? What are you, an idiot?
Hey, you want to show me a Brainy Burro? I want like Brainiac the donkey.
Listen,
that
made
when I saw
this
the
episode
title,
better.
I kind of hoped that this was going to be like Brainiac, but they couldn't afford an actor, so they hired a donkey.
Playing the part of
you wanted to
Brainiac
see a
today will
donkey
be
wearing
Maurice the
shorts?
Donkey.
That would have been awesome, man. But the Brainy Burro, honestly, I was expecting this to be a hyper intelligent donkey that was coming up with clever plans like Lex Luthor style that or Superman had to overcome the more intelligent foe
But
with his
no,
might.
it's just Clip Clop gives you a 1 or a 2.
And the donkey's name is Carmelita too. Like I would give anything to be able to be part of coming up with names for psychic donkeys.
This guy and his names, man, holy smokes.
Yeah, I know it.
So Mark Carwell plays or Carol plays Pepe, who is I tell you what, I kind of like Pepe, and I'll tell you why. He shuns as much fame as he can. He doesn't really want to be all that big. He just enjoys showing up to random Mexican restaurants, which, by the way, what Mexican restaurants just letting a random dude who's got a donkey in to just, I don't know, entertain folks? Is that what's going on here?
Hey,
he
it
just
was
comes
the
and goes as he please?
It was a different time. It was the 1950s.
1950s in Mexico. You might as well have a donkey just walk on into your, and try to take a bite of your enchilada or something.
If the movie Bachelor Party is to be believed, they let donkeys indoors for entertainment purposes in Mexico.
But not near your just rolled tortillas. I don't know what. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. Why? And the guy, he lets them in. He lets them in and just kind of points them right away. It's like, oh yeah, those white people that you want to see, they're right over there. Go talk to them for a minute.
And while you say white people, let's bring this up too. I don't know if there was anyone of any Spanish descent anywhere in this
I don't
particular episode that takes place in Mexico.
Even the Burro was Canadian.
And the kid who plays Pepe is an actor named Mark Cavill. Mark Cavill's biggest role, he was in Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah.
Yes, he played the rabbit.
He is the rabbit.
Yep. I like Cool Hand Luke.
Me too.
Based on a story.
Eat all them eggs, boy. But this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life, and I'm so glad that we got to watch it.
I know. Isn't it so great? Like that's the point of this. Is that yes, it is the dumbest thing you've ever seen. It is. I was laughing throughout the entire episode, and I had so much fun watching it.
I also love it that American bank robbers, who, by the way, people just, you weren't allowed to get out of bed till you had a double-breasted jacket, tie, and hat on in the 50s.
So good.
I love that. Frankly, I think we need more of that in society. You ever see like a picture of people on airplanes and stuff? Oh my God, everyone looked like they were going to church. It was lovely. Now you got people just, coming with their butts hanging out and taking off their shoes. Just come on, man.
The time
just
when you could wear a
50s.
fedora without being a douche,
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Better
it was
times. Better
required,
times.
kinda.
Yeah.
I like it that these guys travel all the way to Mexico. I mean, I'm assuming that they, didn't just cross the border to like Ciudad Juarez. Like they're actually in Mexico a little bit to rob a bank without a real plan on how to rob the bank. Like they're in the restaurant and they see the psychic donkey. Okay, first off, they take the donkey's psychic ability at face value by watching it from afar in a restaurant.
You
Now,
see that donkey he clicked like 4 times on the floor. That's our way into the bank.
Oh man, I wonder how many close-up magicians they went through before they found the donkey. but any plan to rob like 10 million pesos from a Mexican bank that hinges on a psychic donkey? Probably not a good plan unless you have the psychic donkey ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
I love these two guys though, Albert and Tiger. Their names are Albert and Tiger. For some
I
reason.
love that too, and they're from a prison gang. Even the ex-cons dress like insurance salesmen.
Where and there's something about the guy who's playing Tiger where I wanted to see him more. I looked into it to see if he's in more episodes of Superman. He's not, but it would have been so great that him and Albert are just reoccurring characters who are constantly showing up in Superman. I don't know why they didn't do that, but they didn't.
They just redress him like Robert Rodriguez, characters that he blows away or something. It's like, that's Phil again.
Exactly.
Do you wonder what was going through Pepe's mind though, when 2 Americans offered him 200 pesos for a private show with his donkey? Like he had to know that this wasn't going to be anything above board.
Now here's the
you
thing
don't just
too.
get strangers offering you 200 pesos for a donkey demonstration unless they're going to make some money back on it.
But that's what's so great about the 50s is that sometimes people were just nice and gave you $200 so that you and your donkey could just perform a show and not in a sexual way.
Now, I don't know what the exchange rate was like back then, but today 200 pesos is just under $10. So they're not offering him a ton of bread.
Well,
Let's say we quadrupled it. They would have been like, "Hey, we'll give you $40." And he's just like, "Well, I can't say no to that."
I also wonder, does Pepe go anywhere without Carmelita? Like, is this kind of like a Lars and the Real Girl situation where back home his family's thinking about an intervention because he goes everywhere with Carmelita? Like, the way they even get him to go along with the plan is, hey, if you don't go along with us, something bad's going to happen to your donkey. I mean, it's more than just a boy and his dog. I mean, Pepe and Carmelita,
maybe they're sharing organs.
I wonder about that.
It's like
man.
basket
Is this
case,
like
but with a
therapy
donkey.
animal? I would love the big reveal at the end to be that Pepe was blind the whole time and depended on Carmelita to be his eyes.
Oh, that would have been great.
What a twist.
Twister?
And there's the part where Carmelita, okay, first off, the safe combination is literally 2 numbers.
And it's like left and then right. And like, first of all, like all safes, they go the same direction. Like you do the same pattern. They're just different numbers. None of this
2
made
numbers.
any. But yeah, they were like, it's 2.
A 2-digit,
And
not
4,
even 2 numbers, a
and 2.
2-digit,
Yeah.
a 2-digit combination. I mean, who needs a donkey? As long as you've got like, what, max 15 minutes to start with 00 and work your way up to 99?
And the best part is they tie him up. They tie up the bank teller, the manager there. They tie him up. They blindfold him so the donkey can read. And they are speaking so loudly. They're calling each other by their names and everything. I'm like, this is the worst plan. Why is he blindfolded? Does he need to be blindfolded? Was he blindfolded? It feels like he was. But it's so dumb. It doesn't make any sense why they have him there. And then they're like, all right, well, we've said our names enough times. And you did smell the often, smelly stench of a burro inside of your bank. Yeah, you can't put 2 and 2 together on this one.
Even my locker combination in high school had 3 numbers, and it did not have 10 million pesos in it.
If we can talk about something else besides how many numbers are on the lock for a minute.
Yeah.
The one of the things that I really love about the characters of Albert and Tiger is that Tiger has almost like this quality of the guy who won the Oscar in the Tarantino movie a couple years ago.
Christoph Waltz.
Yeah, he's got a Christoph Waltz vibe to him as a bad guy, where he's
Oh.
still very, very nice to people. Like, because when we first meet those guys, the part that you guys are forgetting is that they're talking about how they're going to rob this bank. They're going to take advantage of this kid and his poor donkey. But in the meantime, as the kid leaves, they're like, hey, the kid's leaving, let's go. And they leave money for their dinner and a tip. And then they leave.
Hey, it's the 50s. They weren't monsters.
It's just so funny. Look, yeah, we're bad, but look, this is the service industry. They depend on this money.
They
I
got
think Albert should have asked Tiger to pitch in on the tip, and Tiger should have went on a tirade on how he doesn't believe in tipping. Then Albert tells him, when you're with me, you tip.
I knew we got that from someplace, that scam artist.
Now, a little bit later on, Carmelita almost outs Clark Kent as Superman, because Carmelita draws an S with a shield around it in the dirt. That's
That is a
pretty
good
good
one,
hoof work.
Brainy
What an
Burro.
artistic donkey. I
That
love
is
how
a Brainy Burro.
Where did Carmelita get the chalk? Because they said that
It was
she
sand.
scraped.
it was in the
It
sand.
was sand, Bruce.
That looked kind of chalky to me, man.
No.
It was sand on the ground, Bruce.
They just moved some sand out of the way, and then there was an S in the thing.
How long do you think the Wranglers had to train that donkey to get it to be able to do that?
Are you kidding? They had the fakest hooves you've ever seen come through
What
this
are you
thing. It looked like it was
talking
made
about?
by
That
a
was all
2-year-old.
donkey.
Man, I don't know how dexterous burros are, but I've never seen one that could put a shield around the S. I've seen plenty that can do the S.
They can do
But
the
I've never
regular
seen one
block
with-
letters, but you want to get them to do an S, you can forget about it.
Were they angling for a Brainy Burro spinoff at this point? Like, they knew
Boy.
this was their last season of Superman.
You know, the guy
Were
that
they
was
hoping-
doing it did. He's just like, you guys need this. You need this donkey for another episode. I got some ideas.
I looked this up because I couldn't remember if George Reeve had killed himself after this season. Like, I thought that maybe a bunch of years went by and he committed suicide, but that's not the case. after the 6th season was up, it was less than a year, and he committed suicide. And the producers talked to the guy who plays Jimmy Olsen about being the lead in the show, where they were going to continue making the show and just have footage of Superman that they had already shot with George Reeves as Superman. And they were going to shoot. They were going to kind of make it about Superman still, but through Jimmy Olsen's eyes. And the actor said, "There's no way I'm doing that." So we just narrowly missed season 7 with a posthumous George Reeves in the lead, which goes to show you just how wonderful the people who made the show were. That, hey, well, that guy's gone, but let's keep making money off of that guy.
Let's milk this bad boy some more. Okay, let's talk about this for half a second since we're bringing him up.
I just want to say before we move on that I would love a show featuring a crime-solving psychic donkey with fairly low production value.
No one's surprised.
So season
at this.
7 had been built around the Brainy Burro Carmelita. I would have been on board.
Oh man, you're not kidding. Who wouldn't want to watch that?
The Carmelita Chronicles.
The Carmelita Chronicle. The Carmelita Case Files.
Ooh. That makes it like, so is it like the Donkey Detective? I love it.
Ooh, Donkey Detective, that's way better.
But I'm telling you, these things, they write themselves.
Hey,
Why
hey,
aren't
hey,
we in the 50s?
The Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Ooh.
Get out of here.
I'm telling you, these shows, they write themselves.
Get out of here.
Bruce, there's another book coming right away.
We got Carmelita writing in the sand.
Oh,
Oh,
so good writing down affidavits and everything.
Solved with 1, 2, or 3 horse hooves. or not horse hooves.
Burro hooves.
Burro hooves.
Are we good?
No, let's talk. Hold on. Let's talk about, because it happens in both episodes here. Bruce, you're the comic book master on this here program. What's Jimmy Olsen's job usually at the Daily Planet?
He's the photographer.
What does Jimmy Olsen not have in any of these bloody episodes of Superman?
Cameras hadn't been invented yet.
Apparently so. Apparently 1958.
He had
cameras
to draw
are
everything.
out. He's a court.
Also, you know, people smoked a lot. People smoked a lot in the 1950s.
Boy, did they ever.
So maybe Jimmy really was 22, but that guy's like 37, right?
Oh, man, I am so glad that you're bringing this up.
The young lad.
There's no way that dude is 22 years old. There's no way. But here's the other part, because I really wanted to talk about this for a second. You know, when I was a kid and watching these shows, the actress who plays Lois Lane seemed so old to me. You know, like she just seemed like almost like an elderly lady. And I think the reason why is because the way her hair was and the way she dressed like the way that elderly people dressed when I was a kid, you know. But seeing her now, I'm like, well, that is a very attractive woman. Like her voice is weird, but like she's an attractive lady for sure.
Noel Neill died at 95 years old in 2016.
Dude, she was in
Unreal.
Smallville.
Now, this is about Phyllis Coates, who played Lois Lane before Noel Neill. But I just want to read you a little excerpt, man, in my predictive literature here. I'll tell you who else we saw. Adam slid his microphone closer. We saw Phyllis Coates as Lois Lane. I don't think we ever got to see much more of her in that role after this movie. Shawn said, "You're really being generous calling this 58 minutes of footage we watched a movie. It felt like a 2-part TV episode at best." But what about Phyllis Coates, asked Adam. How does she stack up to Noel Neill? I don't think I could tell them apart if they sat on either side of me on the bus. Shawn held his hands up by his shoulders. There was some method in 1950s Hollywood where they would take an absolutely gorgeous woman, run her through hair and makeup and wardrobe, then spit out a homely schoolmarm on the other side. Pretty predictive writing there.
Not too shabby.
Pretty close.
Now, her last movie, I just looked this up. I think this is something we need to cover on the show eventually. It's called Surge of Power, Revenge of the Sequel. Get who's in this. Nichelle Nichols, Robert Picardo, Linda Blair, Gil Gerard, Sharon Farron, hold on to your hats, Bruce Valanche, and Lou Ferrigno.
Oh, you had me. You had me at Gil Gerard.
I'm out at Valanche, however.
It looks like Eric Roberts is also. Eric Roberts is in it. Vincent J. Roth, John T. I don't know who that is. Huffington Post says, packed with fun, stars, and a message.
Oh.
Now, what do we make of this natural gas trap? Let's just tidy up the ending so we can move on to the next
I think
episode.
it's really well done.
You think the natural gas trap is really well done?
I do. I think
It's kind of
great.
fun, and I was sitting there watching it, and like Shawn said, when you cut back between the obvious Desilu Studios stuff and the footage and everything, it's pretty good. Like for what it is and what budget they had and all that kind of stuff, and like when the train goes by and everything, and they throw in dust there and stuff. Somebody cared a little bit when they did this. It wasn't great, but they cared enough to make it pretty decent.
But I feel like they did it out of order. Now, first off, practical here. Did they not own guns? I feel like they brandished weapons at some point.
Yeah, they have guns.
Yeah.
So why not? I understand they want to burn up the bodies so there's no evidence, but you shoot them first. You shoot them first, then you burn up the bodies.
Where's the drama in that, Leslie?
And then also, they're like, okay.
It's like you don't understand the way that plots work.
Again, this is a man who has read comic books the majority of his life. Doesn't apparently know a darn thing about him.
You know, when you watch
how
Voltron, he pulls out the blazing sword, everything's over. But if he does it right away, there's no show. So
I also like it
end.
though. They light the gas pipe, and it just kind of lights like a gentle flame.
That's
and
right.
They say, okay, we're going to turn the pressure up about a mile down the road, and boy, you're going to get it then. Now, please do not step even a little bit to either the right or left while we travel in the hot sun. You know what? They could have used that burro. They leave the burro behind. They could have ridden that burro and gotten there before Superman could stop this whole thing and turned up the power. But I say you go turn up the pressure first, then you come back and light the flame.
It's not like I like it. I think it was good.
And where did their very detailed knowledge of Mexican gas pipelines come from?
Pipelines are pipelines, Bruce. Don't you know all the pipes? They just do what pipes do. It's the same in there as it is in Iceland.
They have a plan
Albert,
that
you know as well as I do, Albert, that the Mexican pipeline runs 5 miles outside of this little town, and we'll.
Yeah, everyone always has the answer for the plot at all costs, always.
Can I share a quick online review and then we'll move on to the next one?
Sure.
I love these online reviews, man. A burro that can read minds could have been a great concept if executed well. As it is now, the story is campy even for 1958 standards. There is a plot hole that can hold the meteor of kryptonite from Superman, Batman, Public Enemies in the Brainy Burro. Just how the heck did the money get into Clark's room? We are led to assume that Tiger and Albert planted it there, but there is no line or scene to demonstrate this. If the two fugitives placed it there, how did they know where Clark was staying in El Pueblo? Where he, Lois, and Jimmy in the only hotel in town? Why didn't Clark explain why he ran, i.e. make up a story to cover his secret identity? The entire framing was really dealt with in a ham-fisted manner. So I like it. I like it that we got a guy whose review is not a 4-star review simply because they didn't explain what technique Albert and Tiger used to get the 10,000 pesos in Clark's room. That's his only problem. I love it.
I love it.
Gotta get specifics. All right, let's go on to the next episode. It's the next one in the series, if you're watching on the internet there. It's entitled The Perils of Superman. Here's the IMDb on that one. This guy seems to write all these. A criminal who was sent to prison by Superman and the planet staff goes into the planet office and tells them of his intention to go after them. They respond. I'm not going to read the rest because it's just the plot.
Yeah, that's like a way. That's a lot.
So this is I did not know what to expect because the thumbnail for this episode looked like Insane Town, and then when we got there,
great.
Boy oh
It
boy,
was so great. That's why I chose it.
Like this is something that I really thought had to be like comic book related from just the photo, and it's totally not. And in some of my research, I found out that they used this shtick in season 2, but this is in no way related to the villain who did it in season 2.
Of course not.
The lead mask.
Now, to get an idea of what this villain looks like here, guys, just think of someone in the 50s in a nice enough gray suit, but with a head that looks like kind of a Easter Island / Cybermen knockoff, like the first time that they tried to make a Cybermen helmet and it kind of sucked, and they were like, this has got to be better than this even for, 50s Doctor Who. So let's get something else in here. Try again.
And it's clearly paper mache, but it's the color and texture of duct tape. And they're telling us it's a lead helmet.
So Superman
Conehead
can't see
style,
through. Yeah, it's super. Yeah, it's elongated as crap, and it looks bizarre and awkward. But yet you can see the teeth in the mouth and everything, which I thought was
it's great.
kind of
Now,
odd.
Now, how heavy? Let's just start with some practicalities. Question number 1 in practicalities. Just in case people don't understand, there's a man wearing a lead mask so that Superman can't see his face because his X-ray vision can't see through lead. And he has 9 accomplices. So there's a total of 10 men dressed in identical suits in Metropolis with these lead masks on that look identical. And they're doing it to conceal their identities. But I would argue, you know what? You're a cop and you see a guy walking around with a big lead mask on his head. How about you stop that guy and ask him a couple of questions anyway?
This looks like a regular Thursday. I'll let it go.
Well, again, the problem is there were 22 people who had the same mask on. And you got to figure in this version of Metropolis, there's about 30 people. And so you can only stop so many people as the cops.
And then also, thank goodness the actors didn't have to wear actual lead masks. They call it a mask, but it's really a helmet. And that would be very heavy, man. You guys have actually had like lead in your hands before, right?
Oh, yeah.
Hey Siri, what's the weight of a lead basketball? See if she knows anything.
Are you asking me?
Theory.
Oh, you just gave me regular basketballs. I wanted to know how much a lead basketball. Siri's useless.
Well, I've been around like the lead containment units. They're called pigs, but they're lead containment units that you put radioactive material in so that people aren't exposed. And it's about as big around as like a Folgers coffee can. And it weighs approximately 7 tons.
Now that's solid though.
No, it's got a little like cylinder in the middle of it, but the thing is ridiculously heavy. Ridiculously heavy is the point I'm trying to make. So even if you thinned it out a little bit, even just the lead vests that you have to wear if you work in radiology or if you're in an OR that's using fluoroscopy, those lead vests, which just have like lead pellets in nylon, like sewed in, stitched into the nylon, those are pretty heavy.
Yeah, you just
So
get
you
that
had
in
a
the dentist,
solid
man.
lead helmet.
What the heck was that? Oh, there's a shocker. We're bored of the
Where's
horror.
old Shawn? I want old Shawn back now.
Old John's dead.
But yeah, heavy mask of
I would
lead,
have loved
man.
to see them kind of tinkering around and just like walking and almost falling over because their helmet's so flippin' heavy.
I would have loved them like always bumping into stuff like they thought it was going to be a great idea until it happened. And
You just get that
I also-
Django thing of like, could we get bigger eye holes than this? I can't see.
So you know who played the masked criminal? He's just known as the masked criminal in this. His name is Michael Fox.
Yeah.
To really bring it together, to really bring it home, Michael Fox is in a movie called Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone.
Oof.
And
the
his
old Shawn
character-
used to do this whole thing with Sylvester Stallone.
and his character's name in Over the Top, Jim Olsen.
Get out of town.
I love
There
it,
you
man.
go.
That is the
Pew,
world
pew,
I want to
pew.
live in. They also mentioned that their masks are locked on and can only be removed with a key.
The one guy's got the key.
But when you're dealing with Superman, I don't know if that's a plus or a minus. Like, if you try to rip the mask off, like, he might think he's going to Scooby-Doo him and just tear their head from her shoulders, you know? Because he may not even feel the resistance a human neck offers when he's trying to take off a mask.
Superman doesn't even know. He just starts popping heads.
Imagine if at the end of this show, out of nowhere, heads are getting ripped off and blood just spewing like something from the Evil Dead.
Wow, that'd be even better.
Whoops.
Talk about a shocking turn at the end.
Whoops.
But eventually, but
Let's
he
go smoke some cigarettes and have steak for breakfast.
he keeps going on. But like he's like by the fifth one, he's like, no, I got it this time. Oh man.
I love how they kidnap Lois Lane and Perry White. Simply lie in the back seat of the car and nobody bothers to check. You've just had your
So
life threatened
awesome.
by a guy in a giant lead mask and you just jump in the car without looking.
So awesome.
It's so obvious. It's broad daylight, and it's just like, well, and Lois,
how about,
you get
like,
into the
people-
car first in the passenger side and scoot all the way over. No one notices anything. And first of all, this is the 50s. There's no way in blue blazes he's letting her drive.
And the windows are rolled down. People are walking by on the sidewalk. You can see him, and nobody notices.
Hey, guy, what's that crazy guy in the back seat of your car?
With a gun.
I do like that when they're when a lead mask guy is walking by another lead mask guy, they just give the hand up. Hey, how's it going? Hey.
Hail Hydra, all right.
Hey.
But then he takes them to the cabin, and I absolutely love how easy he tricks Perry White into letting him record his voice.
That just shows you how new an actual tape recorder was. That was such a wild and crazy technology that they're just like, aha, I didn't think you'd say yes, so I recorded you on this tape recorder. And he's just
I also like how easily this is straight from a Dumb and Dumber movie plot. He's like, oh yeah, what would you say to Jimmy Olsen if you talked to him on the phone? I would say you go down the road, then you take the second left, and you turn up the road, then you go there, then when you get there, that's the house you're looking for.
Oh, what a dummy dumb you are.
And I also like it that when the phone rings and Jimmy picks it up, Perry White just starts spouting directions. Jimmy has no questions. Jimmy has no confusion even. He just grabs a pencil and starts taking
I'm
notes.
at least glad he grabbed a pencil and didn't just remember it on his head, because there's no way I was just like, for God's sake, please get a pen. Get it. There you go.
There's
Good
no
job.
way that 40-year-old man's going to remember all that.
I'm like, could you do that
Let's
again?
just
I don't
say-
remember.
Let's just say, new Shawn, your phone rings, okay? And you don't let it go to voicemail. You answer it, and all you hear is my voice spitting out directions on how to go somewhere. Do you have a moment of confusion and worry that I've had a stroke and maybe call me back and say, what was that all about? Or do you just go to your car and drive there?
I would call old Shawn and go, is he always like this?
I love the idea that there's no questions. He's just a phone call that's a one-sided conversation with directions, and you just drive there.
One of the great things about TV shows in the 50s, though, is that somebody calls somebody, the one guy who's doing all of the talking, then they cut to the other guy who's always just nodding. He's always just nodding his head. And that's on every show, everywhere. So if you're watching the old Dragnet TV show, it's the same thing, where somebody answers the phone and they go, okay, yep, bye. Hang up the phone.
We'll fill
That's
this
it.
in
That's
with
the
plot
conversation.
later.
Oh, I love to bid on the electric company where somebody picked up the phone and you're just seeing one side of the conversation. They go, you don't say, you don't say, you don't say, you don't say, you don't say.
He didn't say.
He didn't say.
Who was it? He didn't say. I love it.
Of course you
But
would.
anyway,
It's vaudeville humor from 1902. Of course you love it.
the stroke of genius in this episode, something that they could have used in the Brainy Burro, but the stroke of genius is the lead criminal, the lead man in the lead mask, says that he loved old movie serials, which, by the way, old movie serials were 15 years old at the time the show's been made.
Yeah.
But he claims he has nostalgia for old movie serials, and he's intentionally designing these elaborate death traps because he's a fan of This is almost like Jigsaw from Saw here, Adam, years beforehand.
5 years ago when we used to watch those serials.
but they explain, this is one of the first times in this, because now you can't have the evil villain with an elaborate plot without either tongue-in-cheek poking fun at it or acknowledging it. This in 1958 might be the first incidence of acknowledging how ridiculous the tropes that you're forced to conform to are. I
think you were giving way too much credit to this thing, because it's not.
I don't think so. I think Bruce is spot on, man, because I can almost guarantee you that the guys in that writer's room were like, you got to be kidding me, man. Come on.
I mean, they're giving us crap about last week's natural gas trap. We got to do something different this week. Because I believe in my mind that in 1958 they actually didn't start writing the episode that would air on Friday until Monday morning.
Oh, crap, we've got a whole episode to do in 2 days. Let's get it in gear, boys. There's only
somebody go wake up George from his drunken slumber.
There's only so many weird B-roll Superman flying things that we can only put him in so many directions.
But
I will say this, at least compared to the other one, I mean, the other one was, where he was flying was correct. There weren't a whole bunch of buildings or anything, so I give him credit for, at least giving him a new background there. And then, of course, here, having the, the buildings and stuff in the background, I give him credit for that. Again, I think they were, as cheaply as this show was made, I think they were thinking.
Now, the death traps. I want to talk about the death traps because since Rogan said he designed them in honor of those old movie serials from 3 summers ago, I think it's important to just point out Perry White is the classic tied to a log in a sawmill with a big oversized blade. I like that one. The buzzsaw's getting ready to cut him apart. Lois Lane, talk about a classic. We're going silent movie era where the villain still wore a top hat and a cape and twirled his mustache, which is the lady tied to the railroad tracks. And then that old classic movie serial of putting acid on the brakes and steering column of Jimmy Olsen's car. That one didn't seem like an old. That one once again seems like, you know what, you're having a lot of faith in both the acid and Jimmy Olsen.
I enjoy the fact how when Jimmy Olsen's when the wheel comes off of his car, it still tends to go around a lot of curves.
I also like it that the wheel comes off in his hands.
Yeah,
like he's holding the wheel, but he's still trying to steer. And, like the wheel is clearly no longer connected.
And doesn't look even like 1/10 the amount of scared that he should. It's just like, well, this is a conundrum, isn't it? Like, no, you are about to die.
I like this idea because on the previous, the Brainy Burro, you touched on it, that his job is photographer, but we never see him with the camera. I like the idea that he's like Perry White's intellectually challenged nephew, that they tell him he's the photographer and they just let him hang around because he does some dumb stuff.
He just goes, I take pictures. Yeah, sure you do, bud.
He's thought he was 22 for the last 23 years.
I do like, though, that the actor is trying to sell it so hard.
Jack Larson.
He's
Larson's
working it.
Trying to sell it so hard, and he's really giving it all his all. While that fake car, the steering wheel comes off, and he's like, "Oh no!" and he tries to put it back on.
Well,
so good.
When he jumps out of the car, which we don't see because they can't afford it, and then the car goes off. Clearly, just stuff they had previously. He's dangling on the side there. Superman.
Wait, they don't show him jumping out of the car.
That's what I'm saying.
Clearly.
They don't.
Yeah, that's what
I thought. Oh, well, this must be how Jimmy Olsen died. I had no other thought. Or I thought
he never got out of the cock-a-doodie car.
I would love it if they showed the car crashed and he's like rubbing his head and going, "Ow, that hurt," and it's like Superman didn't need to save him because he just
Mr.
survived
Superman.
the car.
But he's hanging there on the ledge. Superman grabs him up, and then, like he does with everyone, has to give an explanation as to what the next part of the plot is. But also basically goes, Jimmy, you're going to have to make your way back on your own. I sure shoot and can't hold you and fly at the same time. That's ridiculous. So now, walk your butt back to wherever you were.
We talk about Clark Kent's death trap real quick.
Yes.
Well, hold on, because I want to get to Jimmy Olsen's thing, because Jimmy Olsen really saved himself. I mean, all Superman did was, when Jimmy Olsen's hanging off that cliff that he can clearly pull himself up on. So basically, it's Jimmy Olsen trying to make Superman feel better by reaching down and pulling Jimmy Olsen up. Jimmy Olsen gets out of the car himself. He hangs off the cliff by himself. Superman helps him up off the cliff, and then Jimmy has to walk home. That's all Jimmy. Jimmy did all of that.
For just a moment, Shawn, for just a moment, when the car ran off the chasm and you didn't see Jimmy jump out and you saw the car crash, did you think for just a moment Superman was going to save him by flying backwards around the earth?
There was a second. Yes, I really did think that.
Because that really had a lot of parallels to Superman the movie.
You're not wrong. I did think that for a second. That's weird.
But Clark Kent has an acid trap. The way they're going to kill Clark Kent is drop him in a vat of acid. And the way that this goes down, dressed as Clark Kent, he falls into the acid. The acid burns off his reporter clothing, and then he bursts out of the acid dressed in the Superman costume.
So good.
And when I describe it, it sounds awesome. But there were sort of limitations, I think, to the lighting that they were capable of, the angles they could get. The action didn't get conveyed nearly as well in that scene as it would, obviously, if it was in a movie made today. But that's one of those where I think the writers were picturing how awesome it was going to be. And it was great. It was fine, but it probably let them down versus the bursting out of the vat of acid in the Superman clothes they had.
Well, because it was as tall as Reeves was, man. He had to just, I'm sure they had to literally put a stepladder in there for him to kind of step on to get out. But I do love how that he gets out of that, and literally the next shot, suit's dry, you're good. and nobody thinks about this. He not only lost a suit, but a pair of glasses as well.
It's true.
Poor guy.
Those are expensive.
Poor glasses.
Those are expensive. He's just a reporter.
Yeah. He ain't got that kind of salary. He ain't working like that.
No, he does
My
not.
Goodness.
And I love the way that Superman deals with problems sometimes. Like he goes to the sawmill, and Superman is capable of stopping a spinning saw blade probably 3 or 4 different ways. But I like it that he chooses to use his chest in this situation.
Yeah.
Like you could put a hand there. Later versions of Superman would probably use heat vision, but he like in a way that looks almost more difficult than any other way is leaning your chest into the saw blade and just
Or
shattering
you
all
could
the teeth
just
of it.
turn it off.
There's no fun in that.
There's a switch where you flip it and it just turns off. I will say this, though. Props for the villains for putting him head first going into that blade.
Yeah.
That's hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man!
But but I'll be honest with you,
would've-
if I'm gonna go, that's the way I want to go. Don't make me grow crotch first. That's no good.
Yeah, that's just for torture. That's not for death.
But that's like with the last episode where villains really, like there was a gentleman quality to them. Like, the guys leaving the money for the waiter for the lunch eating. It's the same thing.
Just quality villains. That's what
I
we're
would've-
lacking
I would've-
today.
I would have liked it if Superman's solution was to just rip Barry White in half so the blade couldn't cut him. Here, you'll safely pass by the blade once I rip you in half. That would have been a great
Good deal.
lengthwise, of course.
By the way,
And
I need to
then,
tell Lois I gotta go see somebody else. Hold on right here while I explain another bit of the plot. And instead of cutting it very close, I
And
could
then
have
what, does
saved
he
her a lot
just pick
earlier.
Lois up off the railroad tracks?
Yeah, it's like no one's ever even tied. She's not tied to the railroad track. In the previous episode, they were just tied up, but they were just standing up against a wall, up against like a mountain wall there.
Yeah,
Nothing
that's why I
was.
said you got to hope they don't shuffle one direction or the other when the pressure finally comes to that plane.
Oh no! It was just so silly, but it's great.
Because I was really wanting to see like how are they going to pull this off? That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, how are they going to pull off Superman stopping a locomotive on this show? I mean, it's right there in the radio show's entry. Stronger than a locomotive, more powerful than a locomotive, something like that.
Again, you should know all of this stuff very, very well. It's been canon
to the radio
since
show in a
before you were
long,
born.
long time. But I wanted to see him like stopping the locomotive, his feet digging into the tracks. How are they going to pull this off with the limitations they have in 1958? But we don't even get to see a big paper mache train getting stopped. He just picks up Lois and they move on.
Again, like I said, I thought that was a great effect. He pushes her, forward, so then you could cut back to the train because they would be behind the train, and then they have the dust go through there. Again, I think you're doing a lot with a very little budget. In my opinion, that got high praise from me.
Hey, I would have loved to have seen Carmelita, the Brainy Burro, in a train costume going down the tracks.
Man,
and George
that
Reeve
would have
had
been
to put
great.
his hands out and stop the train.
Or just wearing a conductor's hat and be behind the thing, pulling on the chain. Oh, I'd like that too.
This is a job for Carmelita, the Brainy Burro.
We've got 24 hours to get this burro on this train.
Investigations.
And then when the Iron Mask guys are in jail, this is a moment of self-realization that you don't normally see in stuff of this era, particularly not superhero stuff of this era, which there wasn't much of. But the two villains are wondering how Clark Kent could have escaped the acid trap. And you understand that they get it. Like, they figured out that Clark Kent is Superman's secret identity. But they're not going to tell anybody because nobody would ever believe it. They don't want to talk about it again. They don't want to get on. They don't want Superman to know that they know.
We're already in jail. We don't want to be put in nut house jail.
And also they're maybe they should be worried. What would Superman do to us if he knew we'd figured out his secret identity?
Throw you to the
But
sun.
they leave that there where if continuity was a thing back then, you could have like a non-existent season 8 episode where they get out of jail and they know who he is, Like they're
threatening
get
to tell the
Albert
world.
Tiger.
Yeah, but they're starting to do some actual thinking about what they're writing here in season 6. They give an explanation for why they have the death traps by saying they like the movie serials. People, all these writers have been hearing for 5 seasons. Come on, nobody's able to figure out that every time Superman shows up, Clark Kent leaves. Come on, how dumb can these people be?
Yeah.
So they have the crooks kind of figuring it out without outright saying it.
And yet Lois Lane is still there, dumb as a rock. Good on you, Lo. Great writing.
And the same guy that reviewed the Brainy Burro wrote an online review for the Peril of Superman.
But of course he did.
Can I share that?
Please.
Upon first viewing of the Perils of Superman, I was about to give it a perfect score. However, watching it a second time showed some bumpy acting. Seeing the lead mask plot device return was great, yet it would have been nice to see it come back as a sequel to Season 2's The Man in the Lead Mask. Rogan was brought to prison by Superman. It's understandable that he'd want revenge. However, one has to ask this. Wouldn't Clark Kent / Superman be able to recognize the villain's voice if he had arrested him before? Elaborate traps give the audience a sense of suspense as they wonder if Superman will make it on time to rescue his friends. We all know he will, but there are moments that leave everyone on the edge of their seats with a slight bit of doubt.
Is this guy available for the fourth chair on this show? Because he sounds amazing.
What?
Well,
yeah, apparently he's reviewed every episode.
I like this guy. Well, here at Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system, but we're not getting there just yet. No. He may be gone, but his bid is not forgotten. One might ask themselves, we've already covered one, maybe he's got more, I don't know. But one might ask themselves, how does this 1950s television show relate to Sylvester Stallone?
Thanks, Adam. I only listened to 3 Stallone connections the other Shawn did, which was last week's show. Then episode 96, the Power Pack episode, which was his favorite. And the very first one that started the Stallone connection, which was episode 3, the Superman the movie. When I listened to that episode, it's clear that old Shawn didn't write anything down. The bit was in its infancy. You boys hadn't worked the kinks out yet. It was kind of all over the place. So in the spirit of new beginnings, let's start this new era of the Stallone connection the way it first started, with Superman. You see, way back in 1976, Sylvester Stallone was fresh off his success of Rocky, and the man lobbied hard to try to play Superman. But when he got turned down because the producers felt that he was too Italian. Now, I've seen Stallone play plenty of non-Guidos. It's like no one's ever seen him play Lieutenant Raymond Tango in the movie Tango and Cash. Adding insult to injury, Marlon Brando, who for reasons I'll never understand, had casting approval. And Brando also didn't like Stallone for the part. Now, when Stallone found out about this, he did what every big star did in the 70s. He went on to the Merv Griffin show. And you know what he did? He told Merv, the entire country, and God himself, he had no respect for Marlon Brando as an actor or as a man. This next part is just conjecture, but I'm guessing Marlon Brando fought back by eating an entire jar of mayonnaise and neglecting his family. Again, I have no sources to confirm this, but judging by context clues, I'm giving it my best guess. This wasn't the first time Brando did this, by the way. He also stopped Francis Ford Coppola from hiring Burt Reynolds as Sonny in The Godfather. Why was everybody in the 70s letting the weird, forever hangry jerk call the shots in Hollywood? Who knows? It was a different place then. What a different world we would live in if Sylvester Stallone was Superman and Burt Reynolds was in The Godfather. I think Stallone took this slight to heart, and I think the world is a better place for it. Not because Stallone isn't right for Superman, but because Stallone used the snub as fuel to work harder. If Stallone gets the Superman role, do we get Rocky 3 and 4? Probably not. Do we get the Stallone we have now? Probably not. He wrote the script for Creed 2, and the man is roughly the same age as my dad. My father won't drive his car at night because he thinks it's too dangerous. So Sylvester Stallone, when you hear this, please keep this in mind. You're better off never having gotten that role. Adam, Bruce, and to you listening, Superman himself is the Stallone connection this week. Superman.
I tell you what, it's good to start off a new era, bringing, echoing back to eras past, and good job, buddy. We can't wait to hear more of those, but we also can't wait to get to our own patented Robin rating system. If you'd like to check that out, head on over to Facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. It's right there at the top of the screen, and while you're there, throw that bad boy a like. Why don't you, Bruce? Where do you rank these 2 episodes of Superman Season 6 on the Robin rating system?
This was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. I had a good time watching these. They're concise. They're not drawn out. They get to the point. this was early enough in the medium that people weren't always trying to be out clevering themselves from one episode to the next. It was just straightforward. You know what you're going to get. Better quality than, and this is near the end. Thankfully, it's in color, but better quality than I expected, more fun than I expected. It's gonna, I mean, it's campy. There's no two ways about it. It's a product of what it was and when it was, but a remarkably fun Damian Wayne, I would say. Like for me, I enjoy it. Other people, I don't know if everyone's going to buy into it like me and Shawn and Adam do here, new Shawn and Adam do here, but I think it's like a very positive Damian Wayne.
Very good. Mr. Shawn Kovak.
What is the highest rating?
Oh, the highest is that's your Dick Grayson.
I give it a Dick Grayson. This is great. This is exactly what I want in on this show. I hope we get to see a lot more of these. I would like to, I would like to have a podcast, my own podcast about it. So it's a Dick Grayson for me.
Listen, as somebody who does a lot of these podcasts, just start slow and then build up, because
I said Dick Grayson.
All right, very good. So I'm a very high Tim Drake on this. I had a lot of fun. I went into this going like, this is going to be okay. And I think Shawn is right. It was a lot of fun. And honestly, if we would have had to do more, I wouldn't have been upset about it, because there is something about it that is kind of, just genuine and fun. And it really, really works. So check all those out, guys. They're on the DC Universe app right now.
We got to watch some of the Max Fleischer Superman cartoons for the show sometime, because those are amazing.
Would not say that'd be a bad idea. But you know what else we're going to do? We're actually going to do a little something else different next week, because that's right. It's that time already again. We just had it, but we're going to have it again. It's Patreon time, everybody, because the month of December is already jam-packed full of stuff. We're doing the Patreon episode at kind of the beginning-ish of the month. So here are the choices that you'll have for this next one. These are pretty good. I'm liking this list. They're all very holiday-themed, so getting you in the spirit. The first one is going to be Batman, Brave and the Bold. The episode is entitled Invasion of the Secret Santas. We also have Justice League, Comfort and Joy is the name of that episode. An episode of a show that we haven't covered at all, Human Target, which I liked. That was back on Fox several years back. And we're going to be that episode is called Other Side of the Mall. And the last one, He-Man and She-Ra Christmas. So, boy, oh boy, do you have a quite the plethora of Christmas cheer there to choose from. So we're going to put that up over at patreon.com/HMP. And remember, if you are a supporter of this show at any level, you're able to vote on that. Next week, we'll cover one of those. Sound like a good idea?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a good one. In the meantime, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet, sir?
You want to go straight to Amazon.com. You want to search for Nerdspawn Genesis. Nerdspawn Genesis is a very, very fun superhero action comedy kind of thing that I wrote that is all about this lovely podcast and how we help fight evil with the help of a superhero. And Chapter 4 is all about the podcast review that we did not do today, which is Superman Meets the Mole Men. So go check out Nerdspawn Genesis. You can get the ebook, you can get the paperback, whichever you prefer. Amazon.com, the only product with Nerdspawn in the name as of the last time I checked.
And listen, like I said, get the paperback, give it to friends as a Christmas gift. They'll love it. Mr. Shawn Kovak, I believe that you've actually even stolen some thunder from our other Shawn.
No, I haven't. I'm going to start a Twitter account because of the podcast here.
Okay.
I haven't done that yet. I'm going to. Until then, though, why don't you throw some money to Patreon? So you get a bunch of stuff. Like you get the pre-show, what's it called? Dinger Zone.
Dinger Zone. Yeah.
You get Dinger Zone. You get what else do you get?
You get to vote, just as I mentioned previously here. We get to vote and stuff, and if you're up at a certain level and stuff, you can get Yeah, swag, man. Shirts.
I'll tell you what you get, new Shawn. You get value for value, whatever that means.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a phrase that Adam makes up, I think.
No, I stole it from someone else, but basically it's just if you get value out of this show, just throw back what you think it's actually worth. I know you lose more than $1 in your couch cushions every week. Why don't you just toss that our way? Because you know what? I'll put it to much better use than their couch cushions will. I'll tell you that much right now. So that's
why I have a cushionless couch.
Yeah, he's just like I sleep on a flat, just a flat, just nothing. All right, so that is it, everybody. Join us next week when we talk about our Patreon selection, patreon.com/HMP. For Bruce Leslie, the new Shawn Kovak, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Don't miss the next thrill-packed episode in the amazing adventures of Superman. Superman is based on the original character appearing in Superman magazine.